Guys, so welcome back. So today what we're looking at, control in Mac. And you can do it two ways. You can either SSH or connect through secure shell, or you can take visual remote control. So right now, I took visual remote control using something called VNC. And as you can see, this is no longer like a PC. At this point, we're looking at the Mac. If I say about this Mac, it's going to tell me about the operating system, it's going to tell me the version, right? So this is 10.11.5, MacBook Pro. This is the processor, how much memory it has, and all that stuff. What kind of graphics card, serial number, right? So we convinced ourselves we're on the Mac, right? So let's look at that. So the question is, how do you connect to the Mac, right? And let's close it and let's retrace our steps. And by the way, the reason you would want to connect to it is that, let's say this is a visual workstation where Maya is running, right? So I open just a test scene with some kind of like three-dimensional objects, but maybe you have administrator PC and you're on Windows, but one of the users on the Mac asks you for help, or you need to connect to something, or it's doing some kind of rendering. Like, how do you connect and how do you do things on the network on a different computer? So let me close this session, right? So let me disconnect VNC, close window, and I'm back on my PC, right? So this is my PC, let me minimize. So let's retrace the steps, right? So I know the IP address of that Mac, right? And let's ping it, let's check it. The IP address of that Mac is 10.168.1.33. So let's do a test, let's ping it. Ping 192.168.1.33. In other words, before connecting, we're checking, like, does it really exist? Did we get the IP address correctly? And the way you know it, like the way to understand what you're getting back is this. It's saying, okay, reply from IP address. So IP address we typed in, it's saying, yes, I was able to get a reply from it. And connection took between 60 milliseconds and like 194 milliseconds, which is 194 is not great. And by the way, that Mac, let me show you how it looks. This is my MacBook Pro. So this is just to understand what is the hardware, what are we connecting to. Another way to deal with pings, another very good test, is ping minus T, meaning continuous. Because regular ping, it will do it for 4 and it will stop. You see, this one will do it until you kill it. So at some point, if the computer disconnects from the network, you're going to get request timeout. So that's a very good test when you test in some kind of network device. That's the very first thing to do. So we get in a continuous ping, nothing is dropping, nothing is bad. Some of them are like, we see like some of them 100 milliseconds, some of them more, some of them less, but that's okay, it's on wireless networks, it's fine. So let's disconnect it, and we're gonna connect to it using an application called VNC, tight VNC. So let's do tight VNC, the same IP address, connect, right? Now we need to know the password to that device. We connect into it. Okay, so you see, now it's giving you login to the device, and I'm logged in as myself. I have multiple users. Let's connect to it. Let's log in as a user, right? So this is a Mac, right? We're on a Mac. This Mac is running Maya, the creative three-dimensional application. We're gonna look at it more in depth next time, but at this point, we're just kind of getting familiar what's going on, right? So let me minimize that. Let me go in and double check that we're on a Mac, so you get some kind of like indication what is the operating system. Come on, you can do it. About this Mac. Boom. Right? So this is 10.11.5. We're looking at the processor, we're looking at all the things. So we successfully connected from PC, and right now we're looking at the Mac. Because the connection is not super swift, we're gonna look at it. Yes, Maya is running, everything is fine, we're gonna close it. Maya, and we're gonna exit from it. Quit Maya. Right? Don't save anything, we're just testing, right? So now let's take a look what we have on the Mac. So on the Mac, people who are just creative users, they probably don't know about it. But they have an application called Terminal. Terminal is the same command line. So basically, underneath, like under the hood of the Mac, it's the FreeBSD version of Unix operating system, right? So a lot of commands which we're able to do on Linux, we will be able to do it here, right? So by default, it probably would open like that. You would get like a white screen, but it doesn't matter. I like to have this kind of like black and green, but it doesn't matter. We can work with vanilla version too. So let's look at it. So let's look at the command pwd print working directory. Okay, it's telling you where it is. You're under users Mikhail, right? Right. Let's do ls. Okay, it's listing, right? Can we do cd command? Yes, we can. Cd desktop. By the way, it's case sensitive. So if you try to cd into lowercase desktop, it may not work. Right, so we're in the desktop. Let's see if it can cd. It's thinking about it. It's cd'd into that. Right, let's see if we can make a folder. Make directory. What are we going to call it? Video_test. Right? So we just made this folder. Right? Agree? Let's do this. Let's do this command. There's a command which allows you to list all the running processes on the system. ps-ef. It's thinking about it. Okay, so it tells you what libraries are running, what things are running, what are the applications, right? So if I want to take that and put an output, pipe it to the new folder we just created. We created that folder video test, so we're going to call it video test, and we're going to call it list ps.txt. txt, boom, right? So what did we do? So we instructed the computer to give us a list of running processes, and then we piped it to the folder video test, and in that folder we gave it a name of the file, right? So before it was empty, but now it has this text file, list.ps, right? List.ps.txt. Let's see if it's going to open it. It should open it in Notepad or something like that and show us what's inside. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, so it opened it in text edit. That's the Mac version of Notepad. And it shows you what are the things which are running. Right? So let's close that. Let's close this. So basically you can have, you can learn a lot of Unix commands right on the Mac. If you have access to the Mac, you can learn a lot of things. Let's see what else we can do. What else I want to show you. Let's look at on the Mac, the way it works, you click on Apple, and then you can select. Let's say we go into System Preferences, right? And what that brings, it's an equivalent of the control panel on a PC, right? So I told you that we have VNC connection, right? The way I was able to enable VNC is I go to screen sharing and computer settings, right? So I have to click on this. So this is what allows the Mac to constantly wait for the VNC connection, which is kind of like a remote control protocol, right? And there's a password, and that is the way to enable Mac to accept VNC connections from the PC or from differently. Also on the screen, you control in what is the name of this Mac, and you can change it if you want to, and you can enable a lot of services. So you can, let's see, you can enable file sharing. So if you enable file sharing on a specific folder, then this Mac will become a file server and will be able to exchange files between Mac and PC, as long as you have the correct username and password, right? So actually, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's select the folder. Maybe we select that folder which I just made. Let's see. We don't want any of this. Delete this. We're gonna delete that. And we're gonna add the folder which we just made. Okay. We're gonna delete that. Right? And we're gonna share that folder which we call video test. So on my desktop, there's a folder called video test, and we're going to tell it to add it to the list of shared, right? So the user Mikhail can have read and write, the people who belong to the group staff will have read-only, and everyone else will have read-only. Or you can say, you know what, everybody else should have no access. They have no business of looking at, right? So let's try that. So everybody else no access, staff, I'll let him have it, and the user Mikhail will have full access, right? So that's fine. We activated file sharing, and let's go back. Let's come back to it and look at it. Yes, it exists. It remembered that. So this is the main place to control the Mac. And for example, if you need to add users, you would go to the users and you would click on this plus. First, you need to open it. So you need to click on this authentication. And let's type the password. Right, so we opened it. Let's say I want to make a brand new user. And I'm going to call it, what we're going to call it. It's going to be, you can make it either administrator or a standard user. Right, there are different, different options. So we're going to make it, what we're going to call it? We're going to call it IT Guru. Yeah, we're going to give it like an interesting name. So boom, boom. We're going to give it some kind of password. Verify. Create user. And in a second, we can change this icon to something cool. So IT Guru, we're going to give him this kind of like nice icon, so you can visually distinguish between different users. Right? So we just learned how to make users on a Mac. You can also do it from command prompt. Like on any kind of Linux, you can make users, or on any Unix, you can make users from command line. We're going to look at that too. But today I just wanted to have a brief introduction and to kind of prove this point that we can, if you want to do like if config, let's see if I can spell it right, if config, right? We clear the screen one more time. If config. So the IP address, remember at some point we were connecting? This is the IP address we connected to, right? So let's see, let me disconnect and let's just remember that we made a folder called video test, and we'll see if we can connect to that folder from the PC, right? So let's see if we can minimize that guy. We're going to close altogether. We're going to close our connection, right? So we closed our connection to VNC. We are back in Windows. We know that we can ping it. Let's test it one more time. Yes, we're still pinging it. Let's close it. I have too many command prompts. Close this guy. So we now know how to take visual control of the Mac, right? From PC, we took visual control of the Mac. What if that Mac is acting as a file server? Or what if we need to exchange some files, right? So let's try to connect to it and look at that folder which we just made on the Mac. The way you connect to it is you type in 2 backslashes, right? Then IP address or computer name, 192.168.1.33. And then you can either connect to the root or you can connect to a specific folder. Since I already connected to it, it knows who I am and it gives me the choice in a drop down, right? So at this point, what I'm doing, I'm browsing. Remember we made the text file with a list of processes? So here's on a PC, I'm looking at the same text file, right? So we successfully connected and we're able to look at the text file. So let's see if we want to copy a couple of folders there, right? Let's say we're going to copy these two guys. FBX objects, which are 3D objects, and OBJ objects. We're going to need it for 3D. Copy and paste. Right? It pasted it, right? So now let's reconnect through the VNC to the Mac and see if we get it. Right? So we already have this. We need to remember the password we set up, and let's see if we can reconnect to the Mac. It's trying. Okay, we're getting a login screen. This login screen doesn't look like Windows. This is coming from the Mac. This is the user I was logged in. Login back in, right? So by the way, at some point on the first try, I wasn't able, file sharing wasn't fully set up. And basically when you go to command prompt to sharing, there are additional options. I had to go back and enable this thing. And when I enable it, using SMB protocol, they call it either Samba or SMB, or sometimes it's also called SIFS. So they're like, basically it's the most common protocol. It's a Windows protocol to share files. On the Mac, they have Apple file sharing protocol, AFP, but most of the time that is only used on Apple networks. On shared networks, they use an SMB protocol, right? So now that I enabled it, I was able to share to map the drive. Actually, mapping the drive, I'm going to show the command, but I was able in this folder. Let me see. Okay, so these are the two folders which we just copied, right? So now we have OBJ objects. And let me see. Let's see if we can open it. So where is it? It's on a desktop, right? Video test. Let's see if we can import OBJ. I have no idea what this is, but let's try to import it. Let's try it. Come on. Okay, it's trying to load the file. Maybe it's a heavy file. Let's give it a second. I'm looking at my MacBook. MacBook is actually the one. Yeah, and also let me kind of show you what's going on. So I'm on PC, right? OBJ file can multiple groups. Okay, whatever. Okay, we got something. Aha. Let's do shading, smooth shade on. And what did we get? Okay. So we're browsing some file. I have no idea where I got it. Like a long time ago, I copied. Maybe it's one of those open source characters. And by the way, here you can change shading. You can do flat shade. Yeah, okay, so I think this is easier to look at, right, in this particular shading. So we're browsing a 3D model, right? So I was able to copy the model from Windows. I mapped the drive. Actually, about mapping the drive, it's good that I mentioned that. Let's disconnect from that. File, let me save it. File. Save scene, right? We're gonna save it, and it's gonna ask us to give it a name. We're gonna give it a name. Test OBJ 3. Okay, fine. You can go to Autodesk and you can get a free version for people who are working in education, for people who are students. They allow you to have a free learning edition of Maya. Right? So I think it's great. Before you would have to, like in the old days, a lot of these high-end applications were extremely expensive. Like I'm talking about $5,000, $10,000, more than that. And it was very difficult. So people would use pirated versions. And then they said, why are we doing that? We want as many students to learn it as possible. We don't have any reasons why we want people to pirate it. So then Autodesk allows you to have a free version, right? So let me quit Maya. We save the version, right? Let me disconnect from the Mac. We're gonna close the VNC. Let's close it. Close window. Okay, we're closed, we're disconnected, right? So at this point, we connected to it by IP address, right? But what if we want to map, like you see, like our main drive is a C drive, our second drive is a D drive. What if we want to map it to a letter, right? How would you do that, right? So let's try it from the command line, right? Let's open CMD. Let's see if we have anything mapped. Net use. Yes, so it is mapped already. It sees that we're using connection to it. But let's try to map it to the letter, let's say F. So the command is this, net use, then the drive letter, F colon, and then we're going to map it like this. We're going to copy and paste this. We're going to come back and paste that. So command completed successful. Now let's do net use. Basically net use on Windows, it shows you what are the network drives which are mapped to your local drive. So we mapped this network drive from the Mac. This is the IP address, 2 backslashes, 192.168.1.33. The folder name is video test. We mapped it to the letter F as if it's a local drive, right? So now if I close all this stuff, right, and I go in here and I say F colon, right, it opens that and it sees that now we have a network drive mapped to letter F, and now we can browse everything, whatever we just copied in there, the text file. So right now we're browsing the file system on that Mac, the folder which we shared, right? And that's what we're looking at. So is this cool or what? So let me recap what we did. We are established connection to the Mac, right? And the Mac, it's a physical Mac, right? This is the guy. This is the guy I'm connecting to, like we're connecting to, and I'm getting like we can ping it. We can connect to it using VNC. VNC allows me full remote control. It's a visual remote control. I can control it. There's another way to connect using SSH, secure shell. At this point, we're not testing it. We're just kind of like getting fluency. So from PC, last class we're able to use Linux and connect to it and reconnect and use command line, reboot computers, have full control. This time we're connecting to the Mac, right? And let's for the fun of it connect to it one more time. VNC viewer, connect. Let's prompt for the password. Thinking about it, we're going to give it the password for the user. And again, this user can be in the same building in a different floor, and this user can be on a different continent. You can be sitting like in New York, and you can be supporting a user in Australia, right? So, and once we're on the Mac, you can learn all the Unix commands, you can do all kind of fancy things. You can run creative applications which maybe they exist only on a Mac, right? For example, Final Cut. Final Cut is a video editor which only exists on a Mac. You cannot use Final Cut. You can have Premiere, you can have Avid, but you cannot run Final Cut on Windows, right? Or maybe it's running some kind of creative application like Flame, right? Flame also has a distribution on a Mac. So at this point, we get into the point that you can be fluent. You know, like maybe 5-10 Unix commands. You know how to connect between the Mac, PC, and Linux. And at this point, like you have the basic kind of like boot camp functionality to connect and to do basic things. So now we're going to go in depth. So that was the introduction how to connect to the Mac from PC. We connected to the Mac. We through the VNC. We pinged it to make sure it exists, and also we're able to share the files. So this folder is our shared folder. So at this point, the Mac is acting as a file server. That's another interesting thing to learn. So I think it's enough for this class, and I'll see you next time. Next time we're going to go more in depth, and also we're going to look at the creative applications to understand the creative side of it. But I think we're making progress. Thank you very much for being with me so far, and keep doing it. You're going to have very good skills. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.